Welcome to Cultura Latina. This week we'll have a conversation with an iconic traditional hat maker in Quito as a reflection of the cultural patrimony from the Spanish and indigenous heritage. And also, we'll take a look at the inspiring exhibit Realities in Conflict in Bogotá, Colombia. The exhibition Realities in Conflict, held at the Art Nexus building in downtown Bogotá, is a part of a space that provides opportunities for people to express themselves artistically and politically. An exhibition in Bogotá, staged in a renovated abandoned building, seeks to highlight the theme of conflict by collating works from both Colombia and around the region. The exhibition Realities in Conflict, being held at the Art Nexus building in downtown Bogotá, is the second to be staged by co-curator Francine Birbragher, who says the space, which opened in 2008, is a part of a new wave of opportunities for artists and art enthusiasts in the country.
Something that is very common in Europe, in the United States, is to have independent spaces for exhibitions. In Colombia, up to then, they were mostly in museums, which are institutional, or galleries, which are commercial. So the idea of having this space for curators, independent curators such as myself or Oscar, who's the co-curator of Realidades en Conflicto, to be able to make this kind of proposals and these kind of exhibitions is truly an asset, not only for the city, but for society in general.
According to Birbragher, by compiling pieces from different locations but on similar themes, it highlights the region's distinct but collective experience of violence.
There are two works, Beatriz González and José Alejandro Restrepo, that relate to the Toma del Palacio de Justicia, which happened in the 80s here in Colombia. But then there's a tank by Regina Silveria from Brazil. They suffer a different kind of violence with this dictatorship. I mean, historically, they do find these common elements. Same thing with Jaime Avila's work. I mean, he is Colombian, but he has the Metros Cúbicos, where he talks about favelas or poor neighborhoods in the different cities, be Mexico, be Lima, be Bogotá, and the issues, the social issues, the political issues, the tragedies, repeat themselves. Same thing with Carlos Mota's graffitis. I mean, the messages are universal. They are written in Spanish, but if they were written in English or they were written in another language, they could be anywhere else in the world.
For visual artist Fernando Arias, who has two pieces of work on show, the exhibition underlines the role of the artist in helping Colombian society approach some of the most challenging elements of its history.
And it goes with my philosophy that art should be showing what we don't want to see. Society in Colombia is blind, and I think we suffer that because we don't want to talk about important things, and this is the problem.
Arias is modest in his appraisal of the different artists can make in the discourse of peace post-conflict currently seen in Colombia.
This piece, the idea is human rights, and us as humans, the concept of humans as everyone is the same. So, I ask these people who are the people who is in different factors of the conflict to address, but at the end of the day, they are all the same.
But for Birbragher, the role of the artist is much more involved.
I think it's difficult sometimes to think that you can change things through art, but I think if you try to get in the minds of people that we could, each of us, generate those changes, maybe you can get someone, at least one person, to sort of say, okay, I know what you're talking about, and it touches me, I'm going to do something.
As a historian, I strongly believe in images being very important testimonies, especially for the non-official history. And I think that artists play a fundamental role in that respect. because you do have a newspaper that is run by a certain person or a certain group, and you know how they manipulate those images and those articles that are published. The artist is an independent human being, and he has a vision. And it's very important for a historian in the long run to gather all these different versions. And the artist plays, in many cases, that other version that is not the official one.
Run by artist Luis Lopez, Humacatama Hats is a traditional hat store in Quito that preserves a diverse and unique hat-making tradition with a distinctive way to use different types of resources. Come see.
Mi nombre es Luis Lopez.
My name is Luis Lopez. My father's name is Luis Lopez and my grandfather was Alejandro Lopez. Since 1920, we have been working in the art of making hats. It began in Ambato, then my parents came to Quito in the 1940s, and since this period, we have been working as a family here in Quito.
Trabajando como familia. La historia del sombrero en el Ecuador y en toda Latinoamérica.
The history of hats in Ecuador and in all of Latin America is that with the Spanish conquest, they imposed the use of hats. An example is this hat Cordobés, typical of Spain. The version of indigenous people of Saraguros is this. Of course, the indigenous elaborated the hat and made it their own way, a little more rustic. The use of the hat comes from various angles. For example, the English bowler hat, a version of the older hat, the same as what the indigenous women in Bolivia use as a versino. A little taller, indigenous people, especially women, have the custom to not let the hat cover their whole head. It is simply balanced on top. If you have noticed in all of Latin America, indigenous people use it only as an accessory. That comes from the Chilean cowboy and various types of hats like this.
Que también hay desde luego el del guaso chileno o varios sombreros de campo que sí, es como el único sombrero que...
The only hat that has been invented in Ecuador is this one. It is a woven hat. Originally, it was woven. An inverted woven hat that the first people from Quito would use were made of mud. Then somebody decided to turn it upside down and put a top on it. And that's how the woven hat came to be.
de teja, pero el tejido es nacional.
The weaving is national. Toquilla straw has always been characterized by the weaving and the work of the artisan. It is a privilege for the country to have toquilla straw because it's endemic to the country. The toquilla straw hat was used in 1921 at the inauguration of the Panama Canal by President Roosevelt. It was then launched to France and became very famous. It is for its lightweight, its elegance, and so the toquilla straw hat is part of the country's identity. In other countries, straw hats have been developed, but the quality of the toquilla straw is unique.
Es proverbial. Al inaugurar el Canal de Panamá,
After the inauguration of the Panama Canal, toquilla straw hats were exported to the world. They were made in Ecuador and unfortunately they were called and became known as the Panama hat. It took the identity of the hat from the country, where it was called the Hippie Hapa hat or the Manabita hat or the Ecuadorian hat, but the work and production has always been here in the country.
quisiera tener la sombrerería
I wanted to have the most important hat shop in the country. As an aspiration, I do not want this to disappear. And as far with identity goes that I want this, it means to create identity, not just historical identity. Today we have created new models and we will continue creating new models, innovating with new materials, innovating with forms, innovating with new styles. My aspiration as a hat professional is to create a trend.
marcar una tendencia.
Thanks for watching. Next week we'll get to know the Peruvian drum box and a very special musical ensemble in Argentina. See you then.